We all have heard the name of Micromax, Lava, Xolo, Karbonn, Spice and Intex. But none of these companies are able to sustain in today's smartphone market. Why is it that so? Where did they even vanish suddenly? In this episode, let's explore why Indian smartphone companies have not succeeded yet. Do you know that 95% of the world's ballpoint tips are produced from the equipment of one Swiss company named Micron? Do you know that 85% of the world's currencies, where it is euro, US dollar or Indian rupee, is printed on ink from one supplier from Switzerland? Now you might be wondering, why the heck are we even speaking about ballpoint tips or currency ink? Are they even necessary to speak so far? And to our surprise, it is. Yes, but how? It's manufacturing. Manufacturing is hard. Super hard. Next time you go into a factory, just marvel the creation therein. Compared to chocolates, papers, inks, ballpoint pens, pianos and cars, mobile phones are far more newer and far more complicated. Are you really surprised that most countries in the world don't have the ecosystem to make that? Now, jumping on our Indian brands like Micromax, Karbonn, Lava, all these companies were performing well before 2014. At least they were not making a loss. Just before 3-4 years from now, Micromax had beaten Samsung India to become a #1 smartphone company in India. This was the time between 2013 to 2015. Micromax and Karbonn were leading companies at that time. You may know many cricket series were sponsored by these companies. In India, Xiaomi, Oppo and Vivo were just in the initial stage. The major companies who had captured the market were Samsung, Micromax and Apple. But what the heck went wrong? Let's dive in. A decade ago, when Apple was about to announce the first iPhone, mobile phone stores in India were still filled with feature phones, and smartphones as we know them today were still a few years away. While Steve Jobs was attempting to revolutionize the smartphone industry, a revolutionary idea of sorts was also being explored at the headquarters of the Indian mobile industry of the time. For years, these companies had served as distribution partners for Nokia, Motorola, Sony Ericsson, LG and other companies. Could they now make their own feature phones? That was a monumental moment in India's mobile phone industry. These Indian brands partnered with Chinese original design manufacturers to explore what is known in the industry as the white labeling deal. One company designs and manufactures the phone, another puts its names on it. These Chinese ODMs brought two areas of expertise to the table. First, they could manufacture feature phones at record low prices, giving Indian vendors a major weapon to fight back offerings from Nokia, Motorola and several other international giants that had in-house manufacturing capabilities. Second, Micromax and other Indian vendors were able to bring new models to the market in a much shorter period of time, while Nokia and other companies typically took more than a year. And thus began the trend of dumping low-cost feature phone models in India and quickly gaining some market share in the country. Micromax and others began to spend big money on marketing, targeting two things Indians love the most: cricket and Bollywood. The problem, however, was much deeper. A top-level executives of these companies like Micromax and other local Indian companies didn't have the right set of people to lead the companies. They were traders nobody had the experience with or much expertise in products. By late 2010 and early 2011, the market had started to demand smartphones. Getting into the smartphone space, the Indian brands brought in one feature that would set the tone for the industries in the coming years: dual SIM smartphones. Micromax and other Indian companies further leveraged their relationships with Chinese ODMs and started to offer low-cost smartphones in the country. These phones sold well as much of India's population eyed their first smartphone, but the devices still looked mostly identical with similar hardware and software capabilities. From a less than 10% smartphone market share in late 2010, to mid 2011 to surpassing 50% in 2015, the companies were finally to good in shape, and then came the turning point. After years of continued growth, Chinese smartphone market was getting saturated, making it difficult for Huawei, Xiaomi, Xiaomi and other local companies to maintain growth. Hence, many of these companies had begun to look elsewhere, with India and Indonesia among a handful of other regions soon becoming their focus markets. India made sense to many, especially Vivo, Oppo and Xiaomi, since they had been the original ODM partners of Micromax and many other Indian companies. They had all the insight on what kind of smartphone Indian consumers want. They already knew what kind of strategies to put in place from years of their experience in China. But soon enough, as more smartphone vendors like Xiaomi began to enter India, they started to gain ground in the country. A sense of panic had already set in. It is wrong to say that Chinese guys came and spent a lot of money in the market. If you don't have products, no amount of advertising will set in. If you found a Vivo phone in certain shape and size, you won't find an identical phone from Oppo. I mean, they copy, but they don't all offer identical features. That's where the fundamental difference lies. In India, we are very good at scaling things. We copy and then we continue to make them cheaper. But if you look at the success of all these Chinese players, they don't really sell cheap phones. They actually sell differentiated expensive smartphones. They make better margins and use that for marketing and retail. Chinese companies had all the insight on what kind of smartphones Indian consumers wanted and how they wanted. One strategy that was particularly unique to Chinese companies was using e-commerce. Chinese players in the initial years stuck to Flipkart, Amazon India and Snapdeal. I guess even you were the one who used to order latest Redmi phones only on Amazon. Did you? This move helped them avoid logistics overheads. But as Xiaomi, Oppo, Vivo started to gain ground in India, they began building the foundation for expanding their presence to brick and mortar stores. To expand their presence to Tier 2 and Tier 3 cities, which are still relatively untapped regions in the country, the two brands convinced merchants to rebrand their retail stores as Oppo or Vivo stores, handing out as much as Rs 40,000 per month just for that. The industry was spending Rs 500 per customer acquisition, but these guys came in and started spending up to Rs 7,000 per customer acquisition. They spent more than 400 crores a year just on IPL sponsorships. 400 crores is more than double of what Micromax spends in whole of a year in marketing. And again, you have to realize Micromax had larger marketing budget than Lava and Karbonn mobiles and other Indian companies. In addition, Oppo and Vivo have also spent a huge sum of money to get top Bollywood and cricket stars, including Deepika Padukone, Ranbir Singh, Alia Bhatt, Hrithik Roshan and Virat Kohli to endorse their smartphones and win sponsorships of big cricket tournaments such as IPL. Vivo has put 2,199 crores on IPL title sponsorship for a period of 5 years, a figure that is significantly bigger than what Barclays paid for the English Premier League, the world's most watched sports league. As a result of these efforts, Chinese companies had started to dominate. All of the Chinese companies operating in India have additionally adjusted their logistics to better match the local policies. One such example is their participation in Make in India program. Market anticipation is another key area where Chinese smartphone makers have been performing exceedingly well. Last year, when Reliance Jio launched with free access to internet, the company sent hundreds of thousands of people rushing to retail stores as Reliance Jio had offered a 4G only network, and hence it doesn't work on smartphones that don't offer support for LTE. But overnight, the market changed from 3G to 4G. So at that time, a person who had never even purchased a 3G enabled phone wanted to get a 4G enabled smartphone to make use of the free internet. As far as a consumer is concerned, they feel that superior product with top quality are being offered by Chinese players. By being consistent with product quality, Chinese companies had earned that mindset and still growing, but with more consensus. Now, the question is there hope to come back? What we see is, if they start evolving in terms of their products, we see no reason why they can't succeed. So being said that, it's time for us to sign off, and let us give your time to tell your opinions on the same in comments below. And do tell us which question should we answer you next. And remember, if you don't know why, ask it on UniWhy. Until then, have a good one.